So worksheet 13C, function notation. A function can be thought of as a machine that assigns one output value to every input value. Okay, so what's saying is that if I plug in an X value or I plug in an input, I'm going to get something in return. Alrighty, so I put in something, the function performs some operation, and now I get a result. Okie doke. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to put values in, perform some operations, and get some values out. Normally, we see equations like the following. Y equals 2x minus 7. In this case, we're not going to use y's. We're going to be using function notation, which, as you can see, is using f of x. Okay, so f of x is our function notation. F is the name of the function, and then the x represents the variable we're using. I can have functions called g of x. It just means my function is g. It could be w of x. It can be any letter that you want. The reason that we use f so often is just f for function. Okay? On the right-hand side is the operations you actually perform. That's the rule. So that's the machine part. It's saying, all right, if I plug in a number, do this to it. Multiply it by 3 and then add 4. Okay? And then what you get is your output. So let's take a look at our first example. Okay? So here's my little machine. Notice the machine is saying that we are going to perform the operation 3x plus 4. So we're going to do two problems. The first one we're going to do is f of 2. So what it's saying is I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to plug it into the machine. Okay, and so this is where everyone needs to be copying things down. You don't need to, if you're writing things, guys, you don't need to draw a machine. Okay, here's what you need to write, is when I plug in 2, this is my following notation now. F of 2 equals 3, and it's saying plug in 2 where I saw the variable. So I'm going to plug in 2 where I see the x, and then I have the plus 4. Okay, so notice what I'm underlining. The 2 is going in for x. Now, that left-hand side is not multiplication. It's not saying f times 2. That's just the notation. So I keep f of 2, and I simplify that right-hand side. Let's actually perform the operation that this machine is telling me to do. It's saying multiply by 3, so 3 times 2 is 6. And then it's saying perform the addition, add 4. So f of 2 equals 6 plus 4, which is 10. And that's my answer. So
you don't multiply the 2 with anything?
That left-hand side is just your notation. You're simplifying everything on the right. Okay? So the only multiplying is right here that I just underlined. Okay? So again, let me summarize. We're putting a 2 into the machine. It's saying multiply that 2 by a 3, then add the 4, and that result is my output, which we got was a 10. So 2 was my input, and 10 was my output. Okay? So let's do the next one. I'll just use a different color so that it's clear. The next one we're going to do is f of negative 1. So I'm going to take negative 1 and plug it into the machine, perform the operations, and see what I get. Okay? So f of, instead of putting an x, I put negative 1. And then I have 3. But instead of the x, I put a negative 1 and then plus 4. And again, we're just simplifying that right-hand side. So I'll even leave the left-hand side blank right now. It's the machine is saying multiply what you put in as your input. So multiply 3 times negative 1. So that gives me negative 3. Then it says after you multiply, add 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. So if you want to leave the left side blank and just kind of show all your work on the right-hand side, that's okay. But understand it's really saying f of negative 1 equals 1. So again, what does this mean? I plugged in negative 1 for my input, performed the operations, and the output was positive 1. Questions right now?
How do you know? Well, I'm assuming it'll be in order. For like number 1, it says illustrate F2 and F1. I'm assuming
you're just doing the first one and then you're doing the second one.
Okay. I'm assuming, yeah.
Yeah. So if we go to number 2, same thing. Okay. We're going to first find f of 4. Okay. So if you are writing things, just please write the original function here. F of x equals 2x minus 1. Okay. So we're going to plug in 4. So that means we're going to, instead of an x, we plug in a 4 where I see the x. And I simplify. Remember, you can leave the left-hand side blank. That's just the function name. The right-hand side is the actual operations. So we multiply first. 2 times 4 is 8. And then we subtract. 8 minus 1 is 7. So what is this machine saying? This function saying? It's saying if I plug a 4 into the machine, I perform all the operations, and a 7 will come out. Okay? Here's what I'd like you guys to do, is I would like you to find f of negative 2 now. So I'll start it off. We're plugging in a negative 2 for x. I want you to simplify, and in the private chat, tell me what you get as that output value. Go.
So we're like solving the second one you said, right?
Yep.
And then we need chat.
Yep. Good, Dom. Max, nice, and very nice notation too, Max. Good, Victoria. Kate, you're close. You just made a sign issue. So watch those negatives when you multiplied. Good, Tim. Eva, watch your signs. Yeah. Kate, still watch your work. Good, Moses, and good notation too.
Do you have to write output equals as the answer? Or do you just...
No, I'll show you the 2 things that I would want. Okay, I'm not seeing any more participation here. So let's look at it. So again, we're using the second one, which says f of negative 2. So that's why you can see in the reddish orange here, I'm plugging in negative 2. I'm going to simplify. The rule is what's on the right-hand side. So I do 2 times negative 2, and this is where some people are making some mistakes. A positive times a negative is a negative. So it's negative 4, not positive 4. Then we have the minus 1. So then I do negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5, which many of you who did participate had. Great job. Here's what I want you to do as your answer. You either circle that, or even better is to write that f of negative 2 equals negative 5. That's your answer. just in terms of understanding this sort of stuff, I'm just drawing a little picture thing just for the heck of it, right? If I plug in a -2 into this little happy machine, it's saying I got the output of -5. Okay? But notice what I boxed in blue and red. Either way to write your answers like that is fine, but notice I'm looking at all your work too. Okay? All right, guys. You try number 3 right now. So there's 2 of them. First do f of 0. So first do f of 0 on the first little robot, and then do f of 1/3 on the second one. Let's see how you do with your calculations. Okay? So for the first one, you're plugging in a 0. The second one, you're plugging in a 1/3. When you have those 2 answers, go ahead and put them in the private chat. You can just say whatever they are. Let's pretend they are 10 and 12. Put 10 and 12 into the private chat. Okay? Try those, everybody. All righty, let's see how people are doing here. Seeing a handful of correct answers. Give you guys one more minute. Seems to be those same folks participating. All right, let's take a look. So the answers, good, are 5 and 4. All right, so great job for those that did that. Others of you, thank you for participating, though. That means you're trying, and that is great. So let's do the first one on number 3. We're just going to focus on 0. So what it's saying is I plug in 0 where I see an X. So notice where I'm underlining, guys. That's where I plug in the value I'm looking for. So this will be saying now 5 minus 3 times 0. Where I see that X, I plug in what I'm looking for. And we're just simplifying the right-hand side. So 5 minus, remember 3 times 0 is 0. And so now 5 minus 0 is 5. So that's saying function of 0, f of 0 equals 5. The next one, 1/3. I plug in 1/3 where I see an x. Okay, so that's the first step. Plug in 1/3 where I see an x. Order of operations. We do multiplication first. Remember, this is really saying 3/1. So I multiply across. So we bring down our 5, and we have minus 3/3. Well, what's 3/3? It's 1. So 5 minus 1 equals 4. Any questions there on number 3? Okay, we are going to skip down a little bit. So skip 4 for now. And we're going to go down to, I just want to see how many there are. Okay, we're going to go down to this page. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so skip 4 for now. On number 5 and 6 and 7, we don't see that machine, but it's still asking us to do the same type of thing. For all 3 of these problems, we are using the function f of x equals negative 9x minus 1. So on number 5, it's saying find f of 2. What does that mean we do? It simply means we plug in 2 where I see an x. So notice they started it for you. F of 2 equals negative 9, and I'm going to plug in 2 again where I see an x, and then we just simplify. So just like what we were doing. Negative 9 times 2, right? Order of operations, negative 9 times 2 is negative 18. Bring down minus 1. And negative 18 minus 1 is negative 19. So that's my solution. F of 2 equals negative 19. If you are writing things down, make sure to put the original problem. So for number 6, write f of 1/3 and then write the function we're using. And so what is this one saying? It's saying plug in 1/3. So where I see an x, we're going to plug in 1/3. Is everybody clear the plugging in part? And then we just perform those order of operations. Again, only on the right-hand side. So I should make this negative 9 be negative 9/1 to make it easier for us. And then we multiply across. So I'll get negative 9/3. Don't put the negative twice. A negative times a positive will give me a negative answer. Reduce that. What is negative 9/3? It's negative 3. And then subtract. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. So f of 1/3 is negative 4. Okay, you guys try number 7. And again, in the private chat, put your answer. Let's hear from everybody. Okay, every single person. Tell me what you get for number 7. Use the private chat. Go ahead. If you get things wrong, it's okay. This is not a grade. What I am grading is whether you're actually engaged in the lesson. And when you don't respond, that's a 0. Great job, Dominic and Victoria. Good, Moses. Yes, Tim. Let's hear from some other folks. Remember, what are we plugging in? We're plugging in -4 this time. And we're multiplying. So we're doing -9 times -4, not -9 minus 4. That looks like what could be an error right now. Good, Eva. Good adjustment. Anybody else? Good, Ashley. Yes. Okay. So let's see. We're going to plug in -4 in for x. So where I see the x, I put in a -4. That's the first step. Now comes the actual math and the calculations. I'm only simplifying the right-hand side. So -9 times -4, negative times a negative is a positive 36. Bring down -1, and 36 minus 1 is 35. So you can just circle 35, or we can use our proper notation. And there you have it. Okay? All right, the last two problems we're going to do together before I let you guys go finish this classwork on your own is to do 8 and 9. And these are different from what we just did. So I really need your focus here. Okay? This time around, so we have our function we're going to use. I'll just change up the colors. We have our function we're going to use. Looks the same, right? But this time around, notice. It's telling me f of x equals 6. It is not saying the following. What I just wrote in blue is what was asked before. It was saying find f of 6. This time it's saying f of x actually equals 6. So if I have my function of f of x equals -9x minus 1, it's not telling me x is 6. It's saying this entire function is 6. So I'm going to make this be 6 equals -9x. I'm not plugging in for that second x because what does the question say? It says, find x. We don't know it. Okay, so I'm really plugging it in for f of x. Now this is an equation that we should all know how to solve. How do I get x alone? Well, we will add 1 to both sides. That gives me 7 equals -9x. And then what do I do to get x alone? Divide. Good. We divide by -9. Now that's not going to come out pretty, but that's okay. We just leave it as a fraction. So in the previous ones, they were telling us what x was. We were plugging it in to find the f value. On this one, they tell us what the f value is. So we plug it in for the f, and we're looking for x. So if we look at number 9, f of x is 0. That means this whole f of x, I'm not going to say f of 0. I'm going to put a 0 there. And I'm looking for x, so I leave x blank. And then this is what we've been working on so much again. How do I get x alone? We will add 1. And now divide. Again, we just get a fraction. Okay, so I'm just going to clarify with green. Here's a difference between two things. Something that says f of 0 versus something that says f of x equals 0. That's the two different notations. This first one means plug in 0 for x. The second one means plug in 0 for f of x. Two different rules. So 5, 6, and 7 was dealing with the first rule. 8 and 9 was dealing with the second rule. Okay, so just make sure you see the clear difference between where those zeros are. And that can be any number, right? I could say f of 5 or f of x equals 5.
So it will always tell you that this is what's going on before. Like, will there always be the words before these that say they're different, like how it does here?
So look where I'm putting a star, right?
Mm-hmm.
That set of directions says find x. So if I'm saying find x, do you think I'm going to plug something in for x?
No.
No. So that should clue you in that I'm going to use like this part here. I plug it into the other side and leave x blank to go find it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, so here's what I want you guys to do, okay, is remember we're taking our third lunch, is I'd like you to, I don't care which order you do it, but we have question 4 that has 2 parts. Remember this one says f of 4, so this one we're plugging in 4 for x. So you're going to do number 4, and then you're going to go do the last page, which is very similar to what we just did. Focus on what do I put where, right? Am I plugging in for x? Or am I plugging in for f of x? Okay, doke. So go ahead and do those. I'm going to give you guys, 5 to 10 minutes to work on those, and then we will check our answers all together. If you finish when time is up, if you finish before time is up, you can either go start in on worksheet D or open up IXL and continue to crank out some IXL.